My life, like an old monotonous tune, was a constant series of routine actions and responsibilities that seemed to suck the colour out of everything. By day, I worked at an office job that required me to put on a smile and pretend to be interested in things I didn't care about. By night, I rode the empty subway home, a solitary figure in a cavernous metal beast that echoed my own loneliness. One such night, my weary eyes found an anomaly in my usual nocturnal panorama. A man. He was sitting at the end of the train car, his rugged features softly illuminated by the flickering overhead lights. His hair was as dark as the midnight sky, and his eyes, sharp and piercing, rivaled any weapon in their intensity. The sight of him filled me with a sense of dread and curiosity in equal measure. The subway car jostled and swayed, adding an eerie rhythm to the scenario unfolding before me. His gaze met mine, and my heart pounded in my chest. Not in a romantic way, as if I were a smitten schoolgirl seeing her crush, but in a primal way, like a deer sensing danger. Despite the panic rising within me, I was drawn to him, like a moth to a flame.
So, do you ride this subway often?
His voice was unexpectedly soft, the accent foreign yet soothing. "Every night," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I tried to suppress the unease in my tone, but it was like trying to hide a beacon in the darkness.
Interesting,
he said, his sharp gaze never leaving mine. Over the coming days, I found myself seeking him out in the crowded subway, feeling both thrilled and terrified by his presence. I began to notice strange patterns. He always sat in the same seat, and despite the subway's erratic schedule, he was always there at the exact moment my shift ended. My anxiety was growing, yet I couldn't resist the pull, the magnetic attraction that seemed to exist between us. One day, to my surprise, he broke the silence. His voice, a low and resonant hum, echoed through the empty carriage.
You're scared, aren't you?
I hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but not in the way you might think. It's not you I'm afraid of, it's this feeling. It's as if I'm losing control. A sinister smile flickered across his face.
Interesting. Fear and attraction, dancing in a beautiful duet. It's been a while since I've seen such a delightful paradox.
The following days were a haze of mixed emotions and unnerving encounters. Each conversation with him felt like a carefully choreographed dance of words, filled with intense gazes and unspoken tensions. He was like an enigma, a mystery that I both longed to solve and feared unraveling. But what was even more terrifying was the realization that my mundane life was no longer just that. The monotonous song of my existence had been interrupted by an unexpected melody that was both terrifying and exhilarating. It was as if the universe was playing a cruel joke, turning my worst fears and deepest desires into a twisted game. But little did I know, the real game was only just beginning. The man from the subway started to consume my thoughts. Even in the depths of sleep, I couldn't escape him. I dreamt of his piercing eyes, the sound of his voice, the rhythm of our conversations. My fear, it seemed, had turned into a twisted obsession, something that both frightened and intrigued me. I started noticing changes in his behavior. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by a tense restlessness. His sharp eyes seemed clouded, and his conversations with me grew shorter. And then, one day, he didn't show up. The seat where he usually sat was empty. A cold fear gripped me, not just because he was missing, but because his absence filled me with an inexplicable sense of loss. Days turned into weeks, and there was still no sign of him. The subway felt hollow and lifeless. The routine that I once despised now seemed like a safe haven compared to the chaos that my life had turned into. One day, while mired in my thoughts, I noticed a piece of paper under the seat he usually occupied. On it was written a single line.
Meet me at the last stop cafe at midnight.
A sense of dread washed over me. But curiosity, as it always does, overpowered my fears. I found myself standing in front of the cafe as the clock struck midnight. The moment I stepped inside, I saw him. His eyes met mine, and he motioned me to sit across from him.
I need to tell you something.
He began, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes were serious, the playful glint replaced with a kind of urgency.
The subway wasn't a random meeting place. I was watching you.
His confession was chilling. I felt my blood turn cold, but I remained silent, prompting him to continue.
I'm not who you think I am. I was hired to watch you, but it's not what you think. You were in danger and I was there to protect you.
A million questions filled my mind, but before I could voice any of them, he started talking again.
Your life was in danger because of your work. Someone found out what you were working on, and they were after you. My job was to keep you safe.
I don't understand. I stammered. My work? I just work in data entry.
That's what you were made to believe. But you were actually uncovering corporate secrets without realizing it. Your boss was using you as a pawn, setting you up to take the fall if anything went wrong.
He proceeded to reveal details about a high-stakes corporate espionage plot that I had unknowingly become a part of. He had been hired by a rival firm to keep me safe, as they wanted to expose the wrongdoings rather than see me get hurt. As he unraveled the tale, I felt a sense of disbelief and relief. Here was a man who had been protecting me all along, from a danger I hadn't known existed. As I walked away from the cafe that night, my world had been turned upside down, yet again. And just like that, my life was no longer mundane. Every moment was filled with thrill and danger. The man from the subway became my guardian, our relationship evolving from a mysterious dance into an unspoken alliance. I was the unknowing pawn in a game of corporate chess, and he was my protector, my silent guardian angel. As the sun rose, I knew my life had changed forever. I felt a sense of liberation, a thrill I had never felt before. My fear was replaced with a fierce determination to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice. And as I stared at the rising sun, I knew I had one person I could trust in this dangerous game: the man from the subway. The weeks following that fateful night at the cafe were filled with more revelations and heart-stopping turns than any thriller novel. My days at the office were no longer about mundane data entry, but about secretly uncovering and documenting the nefarious actions of my boss. The man from the subway, whom I came to know as Alex, became my confidant, guide, and protector in this intricate game of cat and mouse. Each night, we would meet in deserted locations, exchanging whispers filled with secrets, strategies, and updates. Each encounter with him was electrifying. His rugged face held an air of stern determination that somehow managed to soothe my nerves, his dark eyes promising safety amidst the growing storm. The scent of his leather jacket became my beacon of safety, a fragrance that meant hope, courage, and resilience. However, it was one night that my world was rocked to its core again. As we were leaving our clandestine meeting spot in a deserted alley, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, It was an icy chill of premonition, a harbinger of the danger that was about to unfurl. Suddenly, the sharp crack of a gunshot sliced through the heavy silence, echoing off the narrow walls of the alley. I froze, terror locking my limbs. A chilling laughter echoed from the shadows as a figure stepped out. My heart clenched in terror. It was my boss, his face twisted in a terrifying mix of rage and satisfaction. Before I could react, Alex lunged forward, pulling me behind him. His tall frame shielded me from the monster who wanted me dead. With a swiftness born out of necessity, Alex drew a hidden gun from his coat. Time seemed to slow as I watched him expertly squeeze the trigger. His face a mask of deadly intent. I could hear the bullets whizzing past, piercing the deadly silence with their sharp cries. One found its mark on our attacker. My boss crumpled to the ground, a surprised look etched on his face. But my relief was short-lived. A look of pain flashed across Alex's face, his body tensing up as he clutched his side. "No!" I screamed, rushing to him as he stumbled. Blood was spreading across his shirt, staining the fabric a terrifying dark red. But even in pain, his focus remained on me. His sharp eyes softened, the corners crinkling as he gave me a small smile.
"Don't worry."
He gasped, pressing the gun into my hand.
"You are safe now."
His body went limp as he collapsed onto the cold concrete, his life slowly ebbing away. The world spun around me as I clung to him, my screams echoing into the cold, indifferent night. In the end, he had not just been my protector, but also my savior, offering his own life to ensure my safety. His final act had been one of selfless sacrifice, forever etching his memory into my heart. And as the sunrise began to spill into the alley, illuminating the harsh reality of my loss, I vowed to bring those responsible to justice. His sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. This was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter in my life. A chapter of resilience and retribution. A chapter that the man from the subway had set into motion, and one I was determined to see through till the end.